Okay, ready? Should we privately own big cats? I'm going to ask you to hold questions until the end of the presentation because some of the questions might be answered along the slides. So why me? I've been in animal advocacy for about 10 years and 7 of those are focused on big cats. I've been an intern and a volunteer at Big Cat Rescue. I visited accredited sanctuaries across the US. I've been to Kenya. I regularly attend conferences around animal advocacy and conservation. I've also been a board member at local animal rescues since 2010, and I'm currently doing strategy work for 2 big cat sanctuaries. So you could say animal advocacy is my other job. I take it just as seriously as my regular job. And you see me here as doing educational work and doing outreach for Big Cat Rescue at the top and Cat Town, Oakland at the bottom. So big question, what is a pet? A pet is a domesticated animal that lives with people. We have domesticated cats since around 9,500 years ago. So long time. Now what is a big cat? The term big cat is used to refer to any of the 5 living members of the genus Panthera: tigers, lions, jaguars, leopards, and snow leopards. They are called wild animals for a reason. So they have not been domesticated and they have no natural disposition to be in contact with us humans. For this presentation, we're going to focus on tigers in the US. What? There are tigers in the US? Why? Tigers are native to Asia. How come there are so many in the US? So these numbers are from 2019. At that time, we had 1,659 tigers in zoos all over the world, an estimated 3,900 wild tigers in Asia, and then an estimated 5,000 tigers here in the US. That number is possibly much higher because there's no paper trail, the cats are not registered, and we actually don't know. It could be as high as 10,000. And all the tigers born in the US are mixed breeds, just like mutts at the shelter. Because of this, there's no use for conservation. Only purebred tigers can be released back into the wild. And of course, importing tigers from Asia to the US is illegal and also against the Endangered Species Act. So what is the life of a tiger born in the US like? Where do these 5,000 plus tigers come from? Now look at this picture on the right. Where's this tiger cub's mom? This little baby looks scared, maybe a little drugged, worried, sad, just not like a wild tiger cub. So those babies are ripped from their mother shortly after birth. They're hand-raised by humans. They're deprived of immune-boosting antibodies from their mother's milk. So in the wild, tiger cubs stay with their mom for 2 to 3 years. They learn how to hunt. They get strong. They get their immunity. And so in these breeding facilities, the moms that are forced to constantly breed, like every few months, they often develop breast cancer and uterine tumors. And then these cubs, once they're big enough or deemed to be big enough, it's roughly 4 weeks of age, they're being used for photo ops, they're constantly being handled, constantly being touched. And then also the breeders want to keep them small and docile, so they often are malnourished and sometimes declawed or maybe even defanged. Once they grow bigger and they become a little bit more dangerous, they might be sold to roadside zoos, they might be forced to breed themselves, or like you've seen in the TV show, they might be killed because they can't be used anymore by these breeders. It's very expensive to feed a tiger, so that's probably one of the reasons. And like I said before, there's no use for conservation with regards to breeding tigers in the US. So look at the picture below the little baby tiger. These are, adult tigers, probably defanged, maybe declawed, maybe defanged. They are in a pool with trainers or tourists, and this pool is made for humans So that means there's chlorine in the pool, which is painful for the cats. It hurts their eyes, it hurts their skin. It takes away those protective oils that they have in the fur. So it's incredibly unnatural. So is it even legal to keep big cats as pets in the US? Right now, there are different laws from state to state. So this is a map that I created. It shows the laws around private big cat ownership in different states. So 4 states have no laws at all. 6 states don't ban or regulate keeping big cats as pets. 21 states ban all dangerous exotic pets. And then the rest of those states, of our states, allow certain species or require permits. It's pretty easy to get a permit. And even if a state doesn't allow permits, the breeders can get a license and then transfer the cats from other states. So it's also fairly easy to buy a tiger from those breeders. You just have to Google it. You'll probably find places. And then the USDA requires an enclosure size that is pretty much the same as a circus transport cage. That's very, very small. And that would be for those cats to live their life, not just being transported. So those cages will be the place where they sleep, where they eat, where they go to the bathroom, and they only get out to be handled by humans, by tourists. So then what if you're not a breeder or a roadside zoo? What if your goal is not to exploit these animals? What if you just want them as a pet because you admire them, you love them, they're beautiful? What if you, imagine you have a huge space, maybe you have a ranch in Texas, you educated yourself on the needs of a tiger, you want only the best for your animal. What could happen? What could go wrong? Think about if you get sick. Who takes care of your tiger? If you might even die, where does the tiger go to? Our municipal shelters can't take exotic pets. What if your tiger gets sick? Our vets are not trained to treat wild animals. What if your zoning law changes and all of a sudden you're not allowed to own big cats anymore in your areas? Who will take the tiger then? Right? So there's all kinds of reasons why this is just not a good idea. Maybe you fall on financial hardships. Maybe you can't feed your animal or animals anymore. And then also, imagine you live in a community. You're actually not required to tell your neighbors that you have a big cat in your backyard or in your apartment. And imagine that tiger goes out. And there's, families living there. There's kids. The tiger is a wild animal. Their instincts kick in. They're going to hunt. So just not a good idea. So now what is cub petting? What is that cub petting business? What is a roadside zoo? What is a true sanctuary? There's a very big difference between sanctuaries and people who exploit animals for money. So when you see a picture like that, a person holding a very, very cute little tiger cub, your first thought might be, oh, this is so cute. I really want to hold this. It's adorable. I want to, rub the belly. But then if you look a little closer, you'll see that the animal is distressed. And then again, you'll ask yourself, where is the mom? This is a wild animal and it's not a domestic kitten. It needs to be raised by its mom, just like we talked about earlier. The main reason why these breeding facilities have those cubs, or why they breed them, is a business. They make money. Their animals are commodities and they are seen as property. So, and also this reckless breeding results in physical problems for the cubs. Their digestive systems might not work, they might have neurological defects, and just other lifelong health conditions. You might have seen white tigers, you might have heard of tigons and ligers, and someone might have told you, oh, these are very, very rare, you really need to support those causes. So that's not true. They are all man-made and highly inbred. And again, the reason why breeders create those animals is to make money. So those roadside zoos charge guests to pose with cubs. They charge guests to pose with tigers, drugged, declawed, defanged. They might exhibit their animals at county fairs and maybe other for-profit events. So between the breeders and the roadside zoos, there's a lot of trading, selling, buying going on. The breeding facilities need the roadside zoos so that, you know, they can sell their tiger cubs too. National Geographic did a really, really good investigation and research around that, and so they came up with the following maps. The map shows transfer records from two of the largest breeding facilities in the US. We don't have complete records because a lot goes on behind closed doors. So this place is called Serenity Springs. They are now closed, but it was one of the worst exploiters of tigers. Between 1996 and 2016, they received 147 tigers. And again, you can see how like the tigers are, you know, transfer in, transfer out, sold, bought, traded, bred. It is a huge business to make money for these owners. This map shows Joe Exotics facility, and based on the National Geographic research, in only 8 years, 168 tigers were bred there and shipped to other places. I want to point out one interesting thing on this map. So if you look at these different places that you can see, like on the East Coast, you see Noah's Ark Animal Sanctuary, you see Noah's Lost Ark. Then down in the south, you see Something Wildlife Ranch. On the left, you see, another sanctuary, Berry Something Wildlife Sanctuary. So the word sanctuary and the word rescue is not trademarked. Any facility can call themselves a sanctuary. So imagine you're on a road trip in, maybe Texas or Kansas or some place where you don't really know the law, you also don't know the places, and you see a sign on the side of the road that says, "Visit our tiger sanctuary." It would probably make you think, oh, this is a great place, I'm supporting a good place, and they might even tell you stories. But please take a good look at the animals and maybe ask questions, ask where the animals come from, and you'll very quickly learn if this is a place to support or not. So what are places to support? What is a sanctuary? So true sanctuaries don't buy, sell, trade, or breed their animals. They also prohibit the public from hands-on contact, and their animals will be at the sanctuary for life. It's kind of like a retirement home. They provide proper nutrition, vet care, enrichment. They never ever go into the enclosure or touch a cat. The cleaning, like at Big Cat Rescue, you see me there with my friend Erin. At Big Cat Rescue, we do all the cleaning and feeding from the outside. The animals always come first. They always have a space to hide. So if they don't want to, say hi, if they don't want to be seen, they can hide. So it's as close to nature as possible while still in captivity. And also very important, a true sanctuary is not for profit. The rescues are usually adult animals who have been exploited. Their stories are told to educate the public. There is an organization called Global Federation of Animal Sanctuary. It's a website that I added to the resource section on the presentation. And on that website, you can learn a bit more about the highest standard of excellence. So they created, this is an organization, nonprofit worldwide, they created a highest standard of excellence, which is around proper diet, vet care, enrichment, and also giving those cats a living space that is as close to their nature as possible. And so I went to the website, I did a search for big cats just to see how many big cats there are in the US, big cat sanctuaries there are in the US. And I found that there are only 15 true sanctuaries that are accredited by the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries, which is a really small number compared to all these countless breeding facilities and roadside zoos. How do the cats end up at those sanctuaries? So true sanctuaries only accept animals that are confiscated by law enforcement or that came from owners who are trying to get rid of them. At Big Cat Rescue, we only take animals if the owners sign a contract and declare that they will never own or even have a photo taken with another big cat. And if those people violate the contract, there are financial penalties. The animals at those true sanctuaries come from exploitation. They were part of those cub petting schemes. They were used for tiger selfies. They were pets that didn't work out for the reasons I mentioned earlier, like owner situation changed, financial hardship, and so on. So here are a few examples of some tigers that live in accredited sanctuary. So at the top left, you see Nora. She's a white tiger living at Wildcat Ridge. She was inbred, like all white tigers are inbred. So because of that, she has a lot of health issues. Then below that, you see Seth. He lived at Big Cat Rescue. He came from Joe's breeding facility and he passed away at a fairly young age because he had many, many health issues. And then on the right side, this is Calvin and Hobbs. They live at Wildcat Ridge in Oregon, and they were exploited as babies also at Joe's facility, and then they were sold to a roadside zoo for tiger selfies. So the big point I'm making here is that sanctuaries would not be necessary without breeders and roadside zoos. So it's a very, very simple cause and effect. Breeders and roadside zoos create the problem, sanctuaries clean up the mess. We are just a band-aid until the end of private ownership in all of the US. And Big Cat Rescue and others, they want to put themselves out of business. We truly want a world where we are not needed anymore. So taking care of these animals is incredibly hard work. You don't go on vacation, you work your waking hours. It's heartbreaking sometimes. So it's not something sanctuaries want. It's just something that they saw a need, and so they stepped in. And with that in mind, I'd like to address Tiger King a little bit. So that show took a lot of things out of context. It purposefully omitted facts and created a sensationalized reality TV show with the purpose to get rating and views. So a few things I'd like to address. One of it was the founder's background. Like Carol was shown with a tiger on a leash. She was shown going into the enclosure and, petting the animals. And she was made to look not too different from Joe. So during the early days at Big Cat Rescue, Carol actually thought that breeding was good for conservation. She also touched the cats and thought taking them out on events would help, teaching the public around the exploitation of those cats. Since then, she actually she learned so much. So this is, like 30 years ago. So since the early 2000s, Big Cat Rescue does not breed. We don't ever touch the cats. We never take them out. We don't go into the enclosure with them, like I mentioned before. Big Cat Rescue is actually a 5-star rating sanctuary on Charity Navigator. That's like an organization that rates charities around financial statement and around what they do for education, for conservation, for advocacy, and the founder's salary, it's publicly available. So many sanctuaries actually started that way. Like many sanctuary founders fell in love with the animals, right? They did something where they touched them, where they lived with them, but then they learned. So the images here, you see the lady at the top is Tippi Hedren. She's the actress at Hitchcock's The Bird movie. She was in another movie called Roar, where she lived with tigers and lions. And she realized that this is not natural, this is not good for them. She probably also noticed that they were drugged and they were not treated very well. So later she founded a sanctuary called Shambhala Preserve in Southern California. And below that, you see Pat Derby. She was an animal trainer in Hollywood who provided movies with big cats. And this was back in the 70s and 80s. She actually wrote a really interesting book. So she also learned that this is not fair. She felt guilty for what she did, and she later started a sanctuary called PAWS, Performing Animal Welfare Society, up in St. Andreas. It's 2.5 hours from here, and I highly recommend visiting that place. So the point is that, we all made mistakes in the past. We all did things that now we would never do again. As long as we learn and we grow and we do better, it's part of life. Now the enclosure size at Big Cat Rescue. Numbers speak way better than edited video content that is inherently manipulative. So Big Cat Rescue is 67 acres for about 60 cats. The smallest enclosure is 1,200 square feet. This is where the smaller cats live, like hybrids, bobcats, servals, and often those cats are older, so they don't need that much space to roam. And then the largest enclosure size is 2.2 acres. And you see that in the bottom picture. And it's really, really cool. Like tigers can run around, they can go swim in the pool, they can hunt, they can hide. They have several hiding spots there, several trees to scratch, platforms they can climb on. So again, it's as close to nature as possible. In the show, they used the lockout, which is the space where the cats eat, and they presented it as a full enclosure. So another thing they talked about are large crowds. So they showed a picture from with a large crowd of people, and they made it look like we do that all the time. This is actually from an annual event where visitors can walk through the sanctuary for 3 hours, and volunteers are stationed at space where the cat enclosures and answer questions around the story of the cats, around our programs. So this walkabout, this event happens once a year, and the admission from the walkabout is being donated to conservation projects. So guests can choose which project they want to donate their ticket to, and then after the walkabout, we donate the money that was spent or that was collected this way. We donate that to those five different conservation projects. And other than that, we have guided educational tours between 3 p.m. and 4:30, 3 days a week, and you can see me there giving one of those tours. This is where we take a group of 10 to 20 guests through the sanctuary. We play the cat's story, we educate the guests, and we only look at cats that actually are kind of out and about. And if a cat shows any sign of stress, we move on. So the cats are not on display. If you want to learn a little bit more about tours, you can go to TripAdvisor and just look at the reviews that guests left there for Big Cat Rescue. So I also want to address the volunteer and intern program. So volunteering is inherently voluntary work. We volunteer because we like to be part of something that is bigger than ourselves, and we like to give back to the community to make a difference in the world. At Big Cat Rescue, as a keeper, you follow a very strict safety protocol. You get trained and certified in cleaning, feeding, enrichment, and medications for the cats. The volunteers and interns go through levels, which is pretty much the same as gaining seniority at any job. So the more hours you put in, the more responsibility you gain, and that's what these shirt colors are referring to. The shirt levels are based on hours of experience. The show made it seem like there was some sort of weird cult around the level designations, which is actually ridiculous. And then with regards to interns live on site for free in very large private bedrooms in 5-bed 2-bath houses. There's a weekly stipend for food with additional stipends for higher level interns. And interns and volunteers also attend weekly presentations around conservation, vet care, animal advocacy, and other topics, and so you learn a lot while you're there. So this is really funny. The director of Tiger King actually has a non-profit of his own. You can find it easily. It's called Turtle Conservancy. Quick internet search actually showed me that not only does he use interns and volunteers without pay, he also charges the interns for housing. So using this as a criticism against Big Cat Rescue is just so hypocritical. And if you look at his picture, this is a guy who reportedly made $15 million with a TV show, and he recently laid off all of his restaurant workers. So really, we should believe what he has to say? I don't think so. So there are a few other programs at Big Cat Rescue that Tiger King has failed to address. Conservation. So Big Cat Rescue helps conservation. There's an annual budget of about $100,000 that goes to a number of conservation projects all over the world. A full-time researcher is in communication with the organizations, and she also regularly attends conferences to learn more about new initiatives. Then we have the Bobcat Release Program. Bobcat Rehab and Release Program. So that's kind of conservation right there in Florida. Bobcat gets injured, Big Cat Rescue gets called, we pick the cat up, treat them in the on-site hospital, and then once they recover, they go to a remote area of the sanctuary where they are away from people and other cats. And then once they're fully healed, we work with local agencies and landowners to find a good space to set them free. So since the start of the program, we saved about 40 bobcats. It's extremely rewarding when you see the bobcat jump out of the carrier and run away as fast as they can back into the wild. And then another program is the foster kitten program in partnership with the Humane Society of Tampa Bay. So newly born kittens are actually at the highest risk of euthanasia at shelters since they need care around the clock. They need to be bottle fed every 2 hours, and shelters just don't have resources to do that. So at Big Cat Rescue, the interns bottle feed and raise those kittens until they weigh about 2 pounds. We also socialize them and make sure that they're healthy. And then once they're, like chubby and like fluffy and cute, they go back to the Humane Society and they're highly adoptable, healthy kittens because they are so used to humans. Since the foster kitten program has been in place, Big Cat Rescue saved more than 600 kittens. So I hope this all has given you some context about Tiger King, like what they told us, what they choose not to tell us, and as well as the difference between sanctuaries, breeders, and roadside zoos. The sad reality is that the life of any tiger being born in the US is tragic and unnatural. Sanctuaries actually look forward to a time where they can be put out of business and after the private ownership of big cats has been abolished. So let's just go back to the beginning. Should we privately own big cats? What's the point? So, is there a solution? Can we be part of that solution? What can we do to help? First of all, a very good starting point, always consider the needs of the animal over your own needs and desires. Again, those are wild animals. They don't want to be touched by humans. They don't want to be bottle fed by humans. Please don't ever pay to interact with a tiger cub or other animal, and also never visit a roadside zoo. Also avoid traveling shows that feature big cats, including circuses, magic acts, big cat attractions. Again, all these cats used in those places are bred in the US. The places where the animals are rescued from when they go to a sanctuary and the abuse and deprivations many of them have suffered should just not be allowed to exist. So here is the silver lining. There is a bill right now out in Congress and in the Senate, and it's called the Big Cat Public Safety Act. If that bill went through, it would end the inhumane cub-petting attractions as well as private ownership, as well as owning tigers as pets. So we are now closer to passing this bill than ever before. A number of organizations, including Big Cat Rescue, has started the work in 2012. And now we're getting very, very, very close. And the best way for you to help is call your congressperson, Senate and congressperson, and ask them to please support the Big Cat Public Safety Act. And then lastly, also please support true sanctuaries who don't buy, sell, trade, or breed. They don't exploit animals. They are non-profits. They are, again, cleaning up what these other places have done. And they really need our support. Let's just be on the right side of history. So here are a number of resources like I mentioned before. I'll post this to Slack, but also let me know if you need additional information. Like there are lots of really great articles out there right now. And the good thing about this TV show is that more people than ever now know about the issue of private owning big cats. Okay, so any questions, feel free to ask me anything.